Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. We have got a heck of a show for you this week. Really a jam-packed show. Got a couple of really, I think, interesting Kentucky political news stories to cover. Then we have got a really, I think, interesting guest. We have got from Appalachians for Appalachia, Stacie Fugate is going to be joining us. Also, we're bringing back the campaign corner. So we have an advocate from the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy joining us to describe their efforts in a larger campaign across the Commonwealth to stop HB1, which is the effort to blow an enormous hole in the state budget by cutting taxes on the rich, so they can cut services for the poor, because that's what GOP supermajority really likes to do. So yeah, lots to do. And then the call to action, which is going to be very related to our campaign corner guest. So lots to get into. Might as well do it right away. So let's check in with our co-hosts. Let us know who you are, where you are, and what does your protest sign say today. So I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Childsburg, a lovely deed-restricted community on the outskirts of Lexington, right there on the growth boundary. And my protest sign says today, stop the budget bomb, reject HB1. That's me. All right, let's check in. Kimberly, are you there?
Hi, how are you doing? I'm just
Good.
relaxing in the lazy chair today. Um, right here live in Louisville, Kentucky. And my protest sign says today, because it is Black History Month, let's celebrate Black history and not just tolerate Black history.
Ooh, nice. Florida needs that sign, I think, for sure. Awesome. All right, Doug, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm coming to you from Harrison County, Kentucky, home of some of the really fine people of the Commonwealth. You should come visit us. My protest sign, I care a lot about the legislators. So I'm just going to say, hey, legislators, work for the people, not special interest.
From your sign to the GOP supermajority's ears, Doug. I hope they hear you. All right, cool. So we a couple stories want to get to. Let's go to news of the week now. And I think if I recall our run of show, the first story is coming to us from Doug.
Yes, that's correct. Tonight I'm reporting on a story first published on Twitter by Mueller, She Wrote. Mueller, She Wrote is a binder full of women unraveling the mysteries of the Mueller investigation. They promote to join them each week as their hosts simplify the absurd amount of Mueller news and wrap it up in informative, hilarious bites. MSW is committed to separating the facts from conjecture with just the right amount of snark. I love me a little bit of snark. In January last year, the Kentucky Senate filed a bill attempting to recover the $15 million seed money investment provided to Brady Industries to build a huge steel plant in Ashland. We reported on the issue in the past while we were the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee, and now we've also reported on Kernels of Truth. Shady dealings, to say the least. That bill failed after being approved in the Senate and then died in the House's Committee on Committees. But recently, Kentucky did receive the funds back without the help of the Kentucky legislature. In September of 2022, Governor Beshear announced that the Commonwealth had recouped the funds. We don't know if the Commonwealth received only the $15 million or if interest was included. Back to MSW from their Twitter feed. In light of the McGonigal arrest, who was recruited by Deripaska with a favor, I wonder what favor the Kremlin did for McConnell to get sanctions listed on Russell so he could partner with them to build that aluminum plant in Kentucky. For a little background, the favor that McGonigal did for Oleg was to get the daughter of one of his Russian pals a job at the New York Police Department. And with regard to the McConnell thing, staffers for Moscow Mitch lobbied the Treasury to lift sanctions on Deripaska's company, Rusal. Those sanctions were lifted on the condition that Deripaska would sell some shares of Rusal so he wasn't the majority owner, which he did. He sold them to his family and the Kremlin. Sanctions were lifted so McConnell could go forward with his Kentucky, Russia aluminum plant. If you haven't heard, McGonigal is a former head of the FBI's counterintelligence in the New York field office. Before returning from the FBI in 2018, McGonigal supervised and participated in investigations of Russian oligarchs, including Deripaska. So he went from investigating to help to satisfy their wishes. MSW concludes, so my question is, since Russia often recruits with favors, what favor was asked of McConnell to recruit him to lobby for lifting sanctions on Rusal? That, dear listeners, is an excellent question. What say you, Moscow Mitch? Back to you, Aaron.
So I'll be honest. When I first saw this news about Deripaska being linked to McGonagall, and I don't like to say McGonagall, I'm a bit of a Harry Potter fan. So when I say McGonagall, my brain thinks, oh, Professor McGonagall, she wouldn't be involved with any corruption. Of course, she wasn't. But this head of the FBI terrorism squad or whatever, like, who absolutely was just a lowlife, yet was, in charge of, elements that led to the Russian investigation, and, absolutely could have, been, I think, obfuscating actual investigations with his time there. And it's not like you get money from Russia for doing nothing, right? But so when this story broke with Deripaska associated with it, I was just waiting and hoping that Mitch's name would come up again and we could cover it, because it just, it's the reason he's Moscow Mitch, right? Is because he lifted those sanctions. And so I was glad to see Mueller, she wrote, weigh in on Twitter. I don't know if there's any there. It's just conjecture, like conjecture alert all over the place on this one. But I do think that point that, he does favors for people. He requires favors. But that isn't like the millions invested in, a part of Kentucky that needs investment. Isn't that kind of the payoff that Mitch was getting from that work? I don't know. Do you guys think that that could be the payoff?
Well, that certainly could be the payoff. If you think about it, about the only time Mitch comes around is when he's able to hand out funds or appear at something where funds are being delivered, like a Brent Spence bridge and that sort of thing. So, I'm certain had that deal gone through, Mitch McConnell would have been at the groundbreaking for sure. So, and we know that Mitch likes to play the long game. So, I'd say it's very possible.
Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, I'd like to think there's some other corrupt act that was happening, but it felt like, well, the corruption's kind of out in the open because Mitch got the payoff for, taking that move. But I don't know. Kimberly, what do you think about our friend Moscow Mitch and his motives for that?
Actually, when it comes to Moscow Mitch, I mean, what is one to actually say about him that hasn't been said already? And I was just texting with a viewer actually, and they wanted everyone to know that if Mitch McConnell doesn't expire at any time, then we have to make sure that he is never elected again. I don't know if he will make it that far. I'm not God, but nothing surprises me about Mitch McConnell ever.
Yeah, for sure. As our friend Kit says, Mitch never lets us down in letting us down. So yeah, all right, let's go to story number 2, which I believe I've got. And this is the one where we point to some interesting inconsistencies with our squeaky clean Secretary of State, Michael Adams. So turns out our Secretary of State has a side hustle. What? So thanks to some great reporting from the Lexington Herald Leader, we've learned that Michael Adams is still working for the conservative political clients that his firm makes its bank with. So including election deniers, his firm is actively behind elements of the liberty or the libertarian wing of the GOP. And this is, again, according to the Herald Leader. So not my reporting, not my writing. But Adams served as counsel on Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach's unsuccessful 2020 campaign for U.S. Senate. That campaign got itself in hot water with the FEC when it was found to have improperly used a nonprofit group's email list. The issue was that Kobach's campaign underpaid for access to this email list from We Build the Wall, that nonprofit that raised money for a privately built wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, which was, of course, a key priority of the Trump administration. We Build the Law now faces fraud charges in New York State. I think that's the one that Bannon was associated with, right? So they were just really a ripoff, like all things Trump. But Michael Adams negotiated the use of that email list, right? So the Kobach campaign violation was very similar to one that occurred in another campaign that Adams worked for when he worked for Missouri Governor Eric Greitens. Adams, who was the campaign attorney for Greitens and was involved in the Greitens-aligned dark money group, a New Missouri, was involved in a settlement between the Greitens campaign and the Missouri Ethics Commission over use of a veterans nonprofit donor list. Michael Adams has also worked for Nikki Haley, or a dark money PAC associated with her political campaigns. Apparently, Politico learned that Haley's nonprofit, this 501c4, Stand for America, which was formed as the former South Carolina governor was laying the groundwork for a presidential bid. Michael Adams is mentioned as an attorney performing work for the group. Adams' firm is listed on the FEC's website as having performed $43,000 worth of work for Stand for America PAC in 2021 and 2022. Stand for America, the nonprofit, and Stand for America PAC are technically two different Haley-aligned organizations, taking advantage of different rules for different nonprofits to take in different amounts of money from different entities without having to disclose very much about those donations. And that story states that Adams wrote a cease and desist letter on behalf of the Haley team in order to try and stop the story that the outlet wrote last August about the identity of some of the funders of Haley's nonprofit. So in 2019, 2020, the nonprofit received more than $17 million in donations. The PAC, which unlike the nonprofit has to disclose its donations to the FEC, has received about $17 million since its inception in early 2021. So, basically he's kind of up to his elbows in a lot of partisan political campaign legality hackery. And some of it, apparently he's not really very good at it, because two of his campaigns have actually gotten nabbed by different ethics commissions, one federal, one state. So what are they paying this guy for, right? But what do we say, Colonels? Is it a good thing that he remains in the weeds of election and political reporting laws? That's what he says. It keeps him sharp. He's on the leading edge of these rules, and he needs to know that as a Secretary of State. Or maybe is it a bit unseemly that the head of our elections is absolutely engaged in partisan electioneering and seemingly advising political clients on how to cut corners on reporting requirements, which he's been nailed for a couple of times. I don't know. Doug, what do you think about it?
The old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire, far. And I know that Michael Adams used to work for Mitch McConnell. So I think everybody knows my feelings about Mitch McConnell. So, I would think that if I were involved as the Kentucky Secretary of State, I would be far away from being involved. I mean, maybe he could be on the board of, some organization that does good things for people, as opposed to, as you called it, a side hustle where he works on it late at night. Maybe he'd be better off doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. It just seems unseemly to me. I don't know. Kimberly, any thoughts on Michael Adams and what he's up to with his old law firm and his work on partisan electioneering?
I guess inflation is getting to him as well. He had to have a second job. You know, the Republicans have always been known to do and double dip and try to keep secret monies. And this is just another example of that. And keeping sharp, I don't know anything about that actually. However, I can say this: as Secretary of the State, and I am his boss, and everyone looking here today and listening today is his boss because he gets paid by taxpayers, okay? And me being his boss is saying, no, how can you moonlight like that? That's a conflict of interest if I've ever seen one. But, a lot of that is going around on both sides of the table, unfortunately, right now.
Yeah, it says that, not illegal, but certainly not normal for one of our state constitutional officers, who, represent the Commonwealth and have full-time jobs for our Commonwealth, for them to be doing other work. And he says, oh, it's just a few hours and it's on the weekends and it's whatever. But like, man, some decent numbers for just a few hours of work. Maybe we should all look at it, getting into election law on the Republican side of things. Because, we've got an attorney that works for us. And I say work, and I'm going to use some air quotes there because she just donates her time to make sure that we, make sure that we're, staying between the lines in terms of laws for nonprofits and C4s, which are, political nonprofits, and, make sure that we're kind of keeping our nose clean. And good thing that we didn't talk to Michael Adams about helping us out, because we could not afford that guy. That is for sure. Is this where we put a plug in for our Act Blue account? I feel like maybe we should. But yeah, we're not going to hire Michael Adams. I don't think he'd want to work for us either. But we're very happy with our attorney, pro bono attorney. I don't know. All right. So, any other final thoughts about Michael Adams and his side hustle?
No, because you know why? He's got to go. That's the whole deal in a nutshell. He's got to go.
But he's got such a like this squeaky clean veneer, right? And the fact that he, expanded voting in the wake of COVID, and everyone's, oh, yay. Of course, he didn't, he expanded it because he kind of had to. We're in the middle of a public health emergency and our voting rules are horrible, right? And then, they dialed mostly everything back to the way it was before. They kept a few elements, a little bit more, early voting, and because our voting rules were so restrictive to begin with. But yeah, I don't know. I shouldn't say anything, but I'm gonna point. We're gonna share the link to that story. You can read it. You can make up your own mind about whether you think it's unseemly or improper, or if he's even really that good at his job as an election attorney, because you've got two different campaigns that are getting into trouble with their ethics rules, and you've been advising them about how to manage their rules and staying in compliance. That seems problematic. All right, so I'll leave it there. And then I don't know, Kimberly, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you'd mentioned Black History Month. It is, of course, February 1st. We're the first day of it. We'll have a few more episodes. And I feel like last year we did a few different stories about, Kentuckians, African-Americans who, needed to be remembered and we should be remembering. I don't know if you've got anyone at your fingertips that you'd want to talk about with a little bit of time.
Yes.
Awesome.
And thank you, Aaron, for telling me about Colonel Pam's tweet today, which is very much a lot of good information, a lot of love, and also ties to Kentucky. Colonel Pamela Stevenson, who is going to be running for our Attorney General, she tweeted today on her Twitter account, Colonel Pam for Attorney General. It says, did you know that the Carter G. Woodson started his education at Berea College? His mother was a slave, but she had been taught to read. and which, she passed on her love of reading to her children, and education was foremost in their household. Woodson, after being barred from attending American Historical Association conferences, despite being a dues paying member, Woodson believed that the white dominated historical profession had little interest in Black history. Woodson saw African American contributions overlooked, ignored, and even suppressed by the writers of history textbooks and the teachers who used them. Read more about Carter G. Woodson's contributions to Black history and his life. You can go to like the library homepage, and you can type in. I believe that it could be libraryguides.berea.edu, and you can read more about his contributions. I will say that I have all of his books, and he was well before his time. And it was great reading this because I did not know that he was at Berea College in 1903. And also, just another little tidbit, I can't remember what year it was, but it was President Gerald Ford who actually said okay and whipped up the votes and everything for Black History Month. And really, we should celebrate everyone every day of the week. But I think it's important that we learn a lot of the contributions that Black Americans have made to this country. Back to
Awesome.
you, Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. And I'm sorry for putting you on the spot a little bit. But yeah, I think that's a good thing to do. And we'll keep doing that throughout the month for sure. But Carter Woodson, the father of Black History Month, with that Berea connection, which is pretty awesome. Berea is quite an institution that we can all be very proud of here in Kentucky for sure. All right, so we're going to move on now. Very excited to check in with our guest, Stacie Fugate with Appalachians for Appalachia, which is an organization that I think is also a member of the CAVE network, which we are very proud to be. They have made a name for themselves, kind of building an exciting and interesting brand, covering and helping in Appalachia in terms of I think it's social engagement, kind of just general work. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know a ton about what they do, but it's gotten some attention. And I feel like as we think about what's going on in Eastern Kentucky, as it's been months and months and months from, since the floods. We wanted to check in with a group that had some boots on the ground and could give us a report back about how things are progressing. So Stacie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you all?
Doing really well. Yeah. And tell us a little bit about kind of what Appalachians for Appalachia does, kind of your work with the organization, and just generally how things are going.
Yeah. So Appalachians for Appalachia, for short, A for A, because that is a mouthful if you try to say it 3 times fast. We were founded by a team of Appalachian Kentuckians ahead of the 2020 election. And we're a grassroots advocacy organization that works across issues related to preserving folkways, arts, economic development, health, environment, education, and racial and criminal justice. And so at our core, we're this independent advocacy, research-focused organization that, and our whole mission, right, our whole core value is to nurture, empower, and amplify our ecosystem of nonprofits, because there are a really great, and not just in Eastern Kentucky, by the way, we span all of Central Appalachia. And so there are a lot of folks doing great work in the region, and we just want to amplify that. We often say we're not trying to reinvent the wheel by any means. We're just trying to get the dang thing rolling. And so, yeah, that's kind of a little bit about our backstory and our mission. We are fiscally sponsored by the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky. And that is a 501c3 based here in Hazard, Kentucky. That's where I'm based as well. But we serve, the foundation actually serves multiple counties in Eastern Kentucky. They are based on an affiliate model. So A4A is kind of under that big community foundation umbrella.
Awesome. That's great. And so, basically not reinventing the wheel, but getting the dang thing rolling. That's an awesome line. And I think, really gives people a good handle on what you're trying to do there. So, obviously, that's an area that was hit pretty hard by the floods, got a lot of attention, got a lot of, immediate response, which, the nation's attention always shifts quickly.
Right.
And so I think it's always really important, for folks of conscience to kind of think back and try to, kind of get the updates about what's going on and how, what kind of assistance do communities need? Because floods aren't recovered from overnight for sure. And I think there's been some news recently about some kind of vision for rebuilding and some land being put together. But yeah, how, from your vantage point, the work for A4A, and just being in the community, what are you seeing and how are things going?
Yeah. So the sheer nature of the flood, just to maybe give some perspective to audience members that didn't read a whole lot about it. The sheer nature of the flood itself makes it hard to talk about. And so, we dealt with 11 inches of rainfall in 5 hours. Creeks that were usually 1 to 2 feet deep are now 30 to 40 feet high. And those truly troublesome creek is the name of one of the creeks that was really problematic, shockingly. Water crested at 43.47 feet. The highest in history, I think, was 43.1 feet back in the 1930s. And this was all in the dead of the night. And so it really caught people by surprise. And like you said, news moves quick. Sorry if you hear my dog in the background. That is the nature of doing things at home. But yeah, so the legislature can always absolutely do more. At the end of 2022, Andy Beshear made an $800,000 donation from a plethora of different sources for the first of his plan to rebuild Eastern Kentucky in Talcum of Knott County. And that will be anywhere from 75 to 300 acres. And that was about $800,000. And in that same press conference, Scott McReynolds, executive director of the Housing Development Alliance, actually said that Eastern Kentucky will need to see about 2,300 new homes built. And so that's kind of where we're at. We also had flooding in spring of 2021 that people still hadn't recovered from. And we also had people who were victims of this flood that were victims of the last flood and were just now getting their FEMA money. And so, you feel like just as you're getting one step forward, you're taking 18 steps back. And so that's really difficult, but we still have people living in tents, folks, if I'm honest about it. And that's especially hard with the winter weather, obviously, but it's just hard in general. No human deserves that. And so, housing can't wait. And so I've really got to, tip my hat to that I'm not wearing to the Housing Development Alliance based here in Perry County, and also Homes Inc. that I think is based in Letcher County. They are doing amazing work, mucking out houses, rebuilding homes. We have already seen a few houses that are already built and finished for flood survivors, which is phenomenal and in record time. And nobody's got Eastern Kentucky like Eastern Kentuckians. And so I'm really proud to be from this area. And I think that all of our work during this flooding, while I wish it didn't have to happen, it did. And this is the work we're meant to be doing. And we are resilient, if nothing else.
Yeah. It's such a pain to be resilient, right? Because it just means you're getting clobbered again and again. But one thing, and I don't know, I had a little tech difficulty, so sorry about that. But so the governor has announced these, I think, 2 kind of redevelopment areas. And I've said this before, and if you're a regular viewer, you're probably tired of hearing me say it. But I lived in New Orleans when Katrina happened, and I lived there for quite a while after. And there was this kind of sense that, oh man, we really shouldn't put people in harm's way. We should try to, redevelop in areas that are safer, where they can be kind of like more not where they won't have to rebuild again so soon. and makes a lot of sense. But people have ties to their land, right? So it's very challenging to get anyone to embrace the idea of going somewhere else, even if it's not that far away and even if it's safe. So it's been very challenging in South Louisiana to make that happen. It's happened in some very small scales. What's the response being? What are people saying in your neck of the woods to this kind of that proposal to say, hey, look, here's some developable land that's close, it's higher ground, that's a little bit safer maybe. Do you know like what how people are responding to that idea?
Yeah, I think it's really a mixed pot. I mean, I think the idea of being tied to land that has been in your family for generations, that is especially true whenever it comes to Appalachian culture and history. We are so family oriented, and it goes back to living in coal camps and being exploited by those kinds of industries. But present day, I think that it kind of is a mixed bucket, because no matter, I think the family aspect of being close to your loved ones is more important than the land that was deeded to you by your great grandmother twice removed, and so that's kind of what I'm hearing, is just we want to be safer. We don't want this to happen to our home again, because it is tough, y'all. It is beyond devastating to hear any sort of survivor story, and survivor's guilt is very real. But the work that we're doing now is a drop in the bucket based on the needs of long-term recovery. There are thousands of homes with structural damage and entire communities that were almost entirely wiped out. And so I think that people are willing to get to somewhere safer if they have that opportunity.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Doug or Kimberly, do you have a question for Stacie?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I was looking at your website before we got on here, and I noted that you all are working on some fighting some anti-trans legislation in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say, if you can see my T-shirt here, which was given to me by one of my grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
who identifies as a female, and her pronouns are she, her.
Mm-hmm.
And I proudly wear this shirt. So I just want to applaud your efforts on that issue.
Yeah, thank you so much. Our executive director, Callie Pruitt, she is the co-host of Appalachia as well. She's based in Charleston, West Virginia. So she's heavily connected in that network, as I'm heavily connected in like Eastern Kentucky. And so we have a broad range, and we can do a lot of advocacy that way. But it's so important to us that we protect every single Appalachian, and protect trans kids. They are the coolest. And I don't know if you know, I'm going to plug them really quick. Ash in West Virginia. I'm not sure of their last name, but their name on Twitter is Ash in WV. They have a lot of great content surrounding the anti-trans legislation, and a lot of great coverage on that. And they're a wonderful advocate, and they were Appalachia's Rising Star of the Year with the Appalachia Awards. So, yeah, just again, that nurture and amplify our connections and the people that we love in our network. So check them out for sure.
Awesome. We'll give them a Twitter follow for sure. Excellent. Kimberly, any questions for Stacie?
Not a question per se, but a statement. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I know that we need to, the parties need to reach out more and understand and do more for the Appalachian regions of the country, and especially here in Kentucky. I believe that sometimes in Appalachia, they feel like nobody cares, or feeling that we think that they're less than or something of that nature, which is really further from the truth. But I think that we need to do a better job in partnering and collaborating in all areas of Kentucky. to let it be known that everyone is important, no matter what part of the state that you come from. And the things that you all are doing are just quite commendable. Keep it up. And I'm going to be keeping my eye out in any kind of way that I can help. Please let me know.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time and the spotlight on today's episode. And another thing that I kind of want to talk about a little bit is, we're a C3 organization, but we still very much do civic engagement work. And so we are constantly in partnership with organizations like Surge, Standing Up for Racial Justice. And honestly, what has came to fruition from those partnerships has been amazing. We helped defeat the state constitutional amendment seeking to ban abortion and things of that nature. But really, this qualitative data that Appalachians for Appalachia was founded on, that there is an underbelly of progressives that we want to represent in Eastern Kentucky and Central Appalachia, that's now starting to become quantitative and have actual merit within like data organizations. Because the midterms actually, the New York Times did a study on this. The midterms resulted in historic blue margins in Eastern Kentucky, meaning that our political analysis that has been largely qualitative up until now is actually starting to show like quantitative merit, which I think is really cool. And so I really think that plugging in Appalachia and Eastern Kentucky to the rest of the happenings in the country, I think that we have the power to shift the political calculus of the future for the better. So
that's absolutely what we need, right? So throughout this Commonwealth, if we're going to get, policies which reflect the values of folks across the state, we need politics to like hold them accountable. And right now it seems like we're not getting what people really want out of Frankfort. I mean, one of the reasons we created this forum was to help draw more attention to what's going on in Frankfort, because I don't think it's in keeping with what most people want. But it's also just awfully tough to pay attention to in and out. And it's, a little disheartening as well. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. What would you say in terms of the housing crisis that you mentioned? Like, what do we need to be doing? What do we need to be demanding from the legislature? What should we be, are there specific pieces of legislation or just general efforts you would like to see, from the ledge to help you guys out?
Yeah, absolutely. So about 2-ish weeks ago, maybe 3 at this point, time isn't real. I did an analysis of all of the pre-filed House and Senate bills, and I didn't see a single one of them mention any dollars for housing in Eastern Kentucky, which is really disheartening, because it's one thing for someone on the West Coast to forget us, but for our own legislature and, our own elected officials to forget us is really heartbreaking. So absolutely advocating for any sort of housing legislation. I know that they're supposed to go back in session on February 7th. So, and again, I haven't looked at this for about 2 weeks now. So there could be some things in the works, but not anything that I've really heard of that's been put on Appalachians for Appalachia's radar. Because we would love to amplify that. That would be wonderful news. And I think that with the sun not coming out for nearly a week, we could all use some good news, right? And so, any sort of advocacy on behalf of housing dollars for Eastern Kentucky. And honestly, y'all, just keep talking about it. Word of mouth is such a powerful thing. And, I hope that we never forget the hard work and dedication that organizations, the boots on the ground here, have put into helping with the housing crisis and helping with emergency response.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, Stacie, thank you again for taking your time and helping to kind of, shine that spotlight on your really important area. And don't be a stranger. Like, we've got our campaign corner. It is always open to A4A to, come and help spread the word about something that matters. But we are going to go ahead and get on to our campaign corner. So have a wonderful rest of your week.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thanks.
And I would look forward to talking with y'all again. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So we are going to move on now, I think, to the campaign corner, because as folks know, the legislature has been on a bit of a hiatus for a minute or two. And by doing that, we have more of a chance, I think, pay attention to what they're up to. The GOP supermajority has got some pretty clear priorities, and they always make it clear what their priorities are through what they introduce first, right? So this year, HB1 is their House most important piece of legislation. That's why it's got the one, and it is a budget busting bomb that the legislature lit last session when they started to this process of ratcheting down the state income tax. So they're taking advantage of this kind of one-time budget surplus federal money to really start defunding the state's investments and its people. And tonight we've got Natalie Cunningham, the outreach director for the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy. Welcome to the Campaign Corner, Natalie.
Hey, Aaron and Doug, and really nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we are big fans of the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy. Jason Bailey's been on the show in the past, and we know you guys just do really important work and kind of doing the math for the state budget and what it means for our people. And I hate math, and I really hate to see what the GOP supermajority has up its sleeve, because it doesn't ever seem to be in the best interest of the people of the Commonwealth. But tell us a little bit about HB1 and what's going on.
Well, and you said you hate math, and I am also not a numbers person. And so I can tell you that, I'm with you. I hate math and everything else, but at the same time, it's really clear and easy math to understand that if we lose 40% of our state budget, that we're going to have a lot of issues, and that we're going to be squeezing people and programs across the state over time. And so that 40% is currently what our income tax pays into the state budget. And so without that, we're going to be in quite an issue, and we're going to have quite a problem. So, and we look at this, at half percentage points. So the whole bill, HB1, they're looking to take away half a percentage point per year of our state income tax. Beforehand, we were at a flat tax of 5%. We already lost a half percentage point because the bill passed last year. So we already lost a half percentage point. And so they did thankfully put in stopgaps within the bill. And so every year we are going to be talking about this, because every year we're going to lose a half percentage point of our income tax until we get to zero. And we all know what states like Kansas have done, and what's happened in those states when it's gone down to zero. And it's really, really devastating. And so we're here, KY Policy, along with Kentucky Together, which is a group of, over 60 organizations working to raise revenue for the state, because we believe that in public goods. We believe in public goods and programming that helps everyone, and that these are real needs across the state that are just going to get squeezed more and more and more until we get down to zero. So we are here asking everyone to reach out to their senators at this point. So like you said, it's introduced this year as HB1. There was a bill that passed last year that put this mechanism in place. And so every year they've got to do something to say, yes, we want to go down another half percentage point. And so that's what HB1 is. We have heard that the Senate, just as the House was very excited about pushing it through that first week, that the Senate is going to do the same. That's what they've said publicly. And, we're here to say, excuse me, we have services that are necessary across the state. And when we take away 40% of our revenue, we're going to have a real hard time meeting those needs, and that there are real needs across the state. As Stacie was talking about flooding across Eastern Kentucky, where there were already lots of issues and lots of needs. This kind of this kind of bill is just going to take that down more and more and more across time. So we are in Campaign Corner. We are asking everyone to reach out to their senators at this point, because the ball's in their court, and call them now, call them directly, call them quickly, call them often. And I know that you've got a link to that Action Network letter as well. Thank you for dropping that bit.ly there. Fund our future. This is about all of us. And there's so many things that we cannot do alone, and that's what public goods do. And that's what taxes are for. So without that, there's going to be a lot of people in lurch. And so we're asking you to please talk to your legislators, either by calling them directly or using that bit.ly link right there, to send a letter. Say, you know what? We do need to do these things together. And we recognize that when you take away income tax, the people who win are the ones with the most income. It's really clear that those on the top end are the ones who will be getting money back. And the truth is, it won't matter to anyone. The people at the top, it's such a little amount to them that they won't really see a huge return. They'll see more than anybody else will. But then the people at the bottom of our income scale are going to see little to nothing. And the people in the middle, we're looking at a grocery trip or two, possibly, that you're going to get back. And what we're sacrificing at a state level for everyone is really devastating. It's really huge.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of rambling for you.
There was not a ramble in there. That was, I think, very directed and very on message. So really important message that I hope everyone hears and takes action. So yeah, bit.ly/KY-fund our future.
And if you want to know, all of those numbers, if you want to know all of the really deep information, kypolicy.org we've published so much on this. We've published it on our website, but then there's also articles across the state with lots of different organizations, not just us, reaching out and saying this is really important, because we have things that the state needs to do. Our legislators talk about wants and needs, and we're here to say that our needs aren't met as is. We know that, and by cutting our income right now, it's not going to lead to those needs being met in the future.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I guess that's the whole point, right? It's like, oh, we're flush now. Let's put this in motion, and then yay, later we can cut the state spending and make sure that poor people stay really poor and don't have any services, right? It's so cynical and it's so gross, and it's very much the Grover Norquist approach. I've said this before, shrink government down to the size where they can drown it in a bathtub, because these are folks who do not understand or do not value what government can do for its people. As my daughter once remarked, wait, why is Rand Paul, who hates the government, running to be in charge of the government? It's like, well, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. Yeah. So these guys who don't think the government, it's just remarkable when you look at our state and you see how systems are failing people as is, and their solution is to cut taxes. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I can't hear that without thinking about unemployment and how that system was just gutted last year. And, they'll come back and say, well, people just need to work. Well, people need opportunities. They need help. They need a lot of things to get there. And it's just really sad and frustrating. So I know things like that, where you're cutting programs when we're looking at the possibility of a recession coming its way. And this is when we've decided that we're cutting programs. And you mentioned being flush. One thing about the bill is that, I said we have this stopgap. We have to vote for it every year, but they also have it tied to the rainy day fund. And so they like to say that, if as long as the rainy day fund is flush, then we're great. But we know from the pandemic that they're not always spending down that money either. And so it feels like another reason to say, oh, we don't have any needs here. I think we do. I think there's a lot of people with a lot of needs that we're just kind of pushing the back or saying just don't exist when we say that we're flush and we're good to go right now.
For sure. All right. So I want to give my co-host a chance to weigh in here. I know they're passionate about these policies as well, before we let you go, Natalie. So Kimberly, what have you got?
I just think that things are going to be very, very tough really, really soon. When you look at eggs annually for the total year 2022 was up 131% and about to go up even more. And we're just talking about eggs. Potatoes, just modest staples to eat. They're talking about after March, a lot of people in Kentucky will no longer have health insurance. If you get laid off from your job, you won't even have enough money in a whole month to take care of your rent. since they gutted that, as Natalie spoke about. So I appreciate the services that the Kentucky policy is doing, um, getting on the ground, boots on the ground, and letting them know, hey, you might be eating, but everybody else in the state might not be eating, and you need to care. But how do you fix a heart problem? Because that's what it is. It's all a heart problem. How do we fix that?
I don't have an answer. Vote him out. That's my answer. Vote him out.
You know what? I owe you a grape soda. That's one of my favorites, because that is the right answer. They have to get out
You gotta hold them
immediately.
accountable. We definitely do. Doug, any thoughts?
Yeah, I have some comments and maybe some kudos. The comment would be the rainy day fund. It's inflated because of art funds and all that, and I just don't think we can rely on that. I know we can't. Jason Bailey, if you want facts and figures, you can go to KCEP's website, and I know whenever I'm working on another item I'm involved with, if I need facts and figures, I can go to Jason or KCEP, and they have an amazing amount of information. They also allow you as a 501c3 to make donations, and I've done that in the past. I would encourage that. And lastly, I hope to attend the annual meeting that you guys just held, and I came down with COVID, passed it along to my wife, and wasn't able to come. But I know you all had a great time, and I don't know. We want to share any thoughts from the annual meeting?
Doug, we missed you. I'm so sorry that you had COVID. You were not alone in that. I know a lot of people are just, it feels like every time you step out the door right now, everybody gets sick. But, we had a great time at that conference. We were able to bring in Heidi Scherholtz, which is the director of the Economic Policy Institute in DC. And so we really had incredibly robust conversations from a state level, from the national level, all about all of these issues, right? Unemployment insurance, unions. We talked about criminal legal system, jail overcrowding in Kentucky, and of course, what we could do with all of these funds. There's a really fun video on Instagram that Adam posted about, we asked people in the crowd, we talked about these issues. We talked about what the economy is looking like, what the budget's looking like. And we said, okay, what would you do with 2.1 billion with a B dollars? Because that's what we're looking to lose. And that was it was a fun activity to see people really thinking outside the box of what our state could be doing with the funds that we're currently just giving away. And so thanks, Doug, for that. The conference was great. We'll have it every year. And, since you plugged, I have one other very small plug. One thing that was announced at the conference is that this summer, for the first time, KY Policy is hosting a Summer Policy Institute for students. These are college students who are rising juniors, rising seniors, and graduated in the last 2 years. We're going to have 12 to 15 students on K-State's campus right in Frankfurt, and we're going to have a really fun week talking about policy. So that is KY Policy-SPI, and they don't have it up because I didn't tell them before. So, but that's KY Policy-SPI, Summer Policy Institute, for more information on that. But that's just a quick thing we're really excited to announce at the conference. And we're excited just to be able to really help produce the next group of advocates that, the next generation of kids who are going to get to know one another and network and grow in the space, and then, grow up and change Kentucky for us. So, or alongside us, I'm sure. I hope I'm in this work for a long time. So hopefully alongside us. So
awesome. KY Policy, I'm sorry, what was the Summer Policy Institute? So the SPI. Yeah. There it is. All right,
and it's still, we haven't even made it super public on the site yet. So it's even hard to find if you don't have the actual address. So thank you for putting that out there. We're just now launching that program.
Awesome. Another great program. Well, Natalie, thank you so much. And again, if folks want to make sure that Kentucky's budget is not just tilted in favor of the rich, take action at bit.ly/ky-fund our future, or do that. You can do that right now, like right now. That's fine. Open up a new tab, click on that, send your email. It's super easy. But then tomorrow, business hours, call the Kentucky Policy Comment Line. That number, that 1-800 number, these just really fantastic. The friendliest people you will ever chat with. 1-800-372-7181. Make that phone call, 1-800-372-7181. If you've done the action alert we asked a couple weeks ago, it should be saved in your contacts. Because it's really important that we get our voices to those folks as frequently as possible, so that our legislators know that we don't agree with the direction they're headed. So, Natalie, thank you again, and have a great rest of your week. We'll be watching the session very closely. And again, just like A4A, KY policy is always welcome on Campaign Corner. We always want to know how people can help and what we should be helping them with. So, appreciate you.
We got some issues. We'll come back.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to throw it over to Kimberly rather to close us out, because it has been another nearly hour of your time you spent with the Kernels of Truth.
I know, but we are like so all that. So I know people are like, oh my God, it's about to end. But I do have to make this comment right here. Miss Natalie Cunningham and Miss Stacie Fugate, they were absolute wonderful guests tonight. And I saw a lot of that girl power going on too. I'm just saying, guys, I'm just saying. But we will be back next week. Yes, we will. And we'll get a legislative update from Rookie State Representative and friend of Progress Kentucky, right there in Lexington. And that's Representative Layman Swan. I got it right this time.
No,
Layman Swan.
Lamine.
Huh?
It's Lamine. Lamine Swan.
Oh, so I was going to say it right. But I was just, you know what? I knew how to say it. I just want to make sure you knew how to say it.
Thank you for that quiz.
So Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement. Most of you all may know it as CAVE. And we are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Tonight, I want to tell you that our goals, Progress Kentucky's goals, is to educate, organize, and increase voter turnout and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Production this evening was by our very own wonderful, fabulous Annabelle Nagel. And also, we want to thank Nate Orshan for the theme song. We're going to say it every week because he's so wonderful and great. If you haven't gone on his website to listen to his music, you are really doing an injustice to yourself. So go on over there to natosongs.com, and that's NATO songs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook, do not worry. We've got you covered. You can rewatch our shows and see our source links on Facebook. Or if you're at work, you're riding in the car, I don't want you looking at us now while you're driving in the car, but you can also hear us on Apple, Google, Spotify, and basically wherever you get your podcast. Seriously. Some of the logo and graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at Couchfire Media. So great show tonight, and I can't wait for next week. I mean, like, this is exciting. We're getting geared up. It's the beginning of the year, the beginning of Black History Month. I mean, what else can you ask for except for this? You've made it over the hump day. You only got a couple of days left, so do something nice for someone, okay? I'm going to do something nice and you will too. It'll make you feel better and the person that you do something nice for. Same bat channel next week, same bat time, and we'll see you then. Have a great rest of your week.